So why the relation to Wizard of Oz? There's a number of surprising things here. So first of all, this is the kind of meme flyer I did up for the course that's going to be starting tonight. So that's it behind me, but let's just share the screen to it. Now, what I'm using this to do is to outline the distinction between the Rosicrucian, the Jesuit, and the Freemason. And whether this is understood, we're going to try and outline some of this in the course and try and update it from the time of Steiner up to the present time. We've got the Jesuit impulse almost diametrically opposed to the Rosicrucian impulse, and then the Freemasonic impulse as strong now as it was 100 years ago, with exercising power through the media, through politics. But what I'm finding very, very fascinating here is just looking at the astrological aspect of things. So again, if we go to the star chart, and you have to forgive me, this is of my own star chart, and looking at transits, this is going back to 1939. So remembering that Wizard of Oz was released in 1939, we have here Jupiter around 22 degrees Taurus. Then if we go back to let's take it back. We're going to take it back a year. So thinking that Frank L. Baum was writing this in the lead up, or that this whole time leading up to 1939, to the outbreak of the Second World War, these ideas were brewing in him. And it's, for me, it's such a significant film anyway. We've got the whole transition from the black and white into glorious technicolor of Wizard of Oz and beautiful Judy Garland and Scarecrow Man and all of that, Emerald City. So if we look back at 1938, we see here Uranus 18 going from 18 to 22 within that year. So going from, so let's just go back to from 18 degrees, we're going to go in there, change that to 1939. Around the outbreak, you see it's gone from 18 over into 22 degrees. So that's about that 19 degrees. That's exactly where it is now. We've again got this Uranus. It's this point of the chart. Now, if I show you this chart for today, 2022, here we see North Node, Mars, Uranus on that same position. So that's why I feel it's very significant to again look at this time of the similar transition of Uranus through Taurus. So just pulling up this picture again. And that's why it's significant. We're not in Kansas anymore. It's this change outwardly that's so well reflected in this wonderful colorful imagery of all of and the beauty of that Wizard of Oz world. But it's just, there's this spiritual aspect here and these aspects of Uranus. And here what I'm trying to outline here is the three different spiritual powers in the world. One very much working through the outer politics and domination of business and finance, the Freemasonic. Behind this is kind of scientific materialism, the Jesuit impulse. And here, if we just read through this, As coroner, I must aver, I thoroughly examined her, and she's not only merely dead, she's really most sincerely dead. This is the Munchkins singing this, as Dorothy has arrived in Munchkin Land. Then we have the Freemason. We represent the Lollipop Guild, the Lollipop Guild, the Lollipop Guild, and on behalf of the Lollipop Guild, we'd like to welcome you to Munchkin Land. There's a lot here about the slave mentality versus the king or master mentality, and of course in Wizard of Oz this is the magician. This is Oz himself, the grand master who's pulling all the strings from behind the curtain. And Dorothy's very much like us, the subjectivity that has to go through this path and learn to go on this spiritual quest, where she's then got the threefold Scarecrow, Iron Man, and who's the other one? Lion. To get to that Emerald City at the end. So it's a journey of spiritual awakening amidst all of this outer societal chaos. So again, I think it's significant we've got this Uranus at the same point in the chart as it was back in the 1930s. And then we've got the Rosicrucian impulse, which is let the joyous news be spread, the wicked old witch at last is dead. But the question is if we can really realize this, and the great interest in the with the occult powers that be, the status quo, is the use of the occult to put people to sleep so that you don't wake up to the spiritual things that are going on in the present. Part of this is learning to think spiritually, to think and understand historically what's going on. So all of this stuff that some people just get instinctively about astrology, about what's going on in the world, some people just get it. Other people are not getting it. They're going to be hypnotized in the present time. It's really a make or break, sink or swim type period. So not only this, I think people are getting reminders, and as part of also this lecture series From Jesus to Christ, reminders of that whole period of early Christians repression, the state repression, the state witch hunt of people that are leading a life or believing in things that are against the state authority. That's very much the Jesuit impulse as well. So I'm just going to stop this share, take us over again to the what I had written up about this. So these are some of the things we're going to be looking at here. So we're looking at the second half of 2022, and what we want to make the distinction here is between this Holy Spirit, where from a Rosicrucian point of view, this is how we want to understand things, through the Holy Spirit, through engaging and activating our thinking, so that we can better understand what it means, this return of Christ in the etheric in the present time, as the foundation really of how we come to do and understand anthroposophy and understand spirituality in the present time. Only through doing this can we start to activate our will and work down into the earth to connect that Christ working with the Father Spirit deep into the earth, into our will. So this is diametrically opposed to Jesuit training, which is, and I've written here, railing an army under the banner of Jesus as king against Lucifer, driving out any conscious understanding of the Spirit to polarize and harden into self-identification, a materialistic scientific orientation. This is what we see all over, and it's been a growing tendency also in the anthroposophical world, but in the world at large, through the last 100 years, so that now we have we have whole industries that are focused on materialistic science, whether that's from the arms industry to the to medicine, to pharma, to banking. All of this is a concentration and a focus and a hardening of the spirit down into only matter. Anything outside of matter has to be outlawed, and that's what we've seen increasingly since 2020. I'm bringing a link back here, which is a theme of another talk, but we can go back to the burning of the Goetheanum 1920 to 2020, which has set up these intense years from 2020, 2021, 2023 to 2024. As we get this whole transition of different astrological aspects from Uranus and from Neptune, as one can follow up in other talks on astrology that people have given. So here, the Jesuit impulse is really, and I think it's important to focus on these 4 areas to fully identify how and where we can see this impulse in the world. First of all, the appeal to authority rather than personal experience and understanding. This, that we should submit to outer experts, whether they are corrupt or have the moral good of humanity in mind or at heart. Regardless of this, bowing to authority, the amount of people who followed diktats from 2020 onwards, and I'm being careful with my words here, but following diktats without even questioning the rationale or the reasoning or the contents of what one was being asked to consume. These are all examples of the Jesuit tendency, the enforcement of behavior rather than behavior conducted out of conscious understanding of what it is one was being asked to do, or not even asked to do, to the freedom to choose what one does. Secondly, the focus of group dynamics and their manipulation rather than social aesthetics. This is one of the key distinctions that I think marks out anthroposophy now from what it was like 100 years ago. The importance, back then things fell apart also due to this question of social aesthetics. Can I work with other people together? Can I come and can we pool our resources to make something bigger than just the parts? Can we be the sum of the parts and create something new together? Or are we going to fall apart in conflict, in politics, when it really should be about spiritual research? Can we actually formulate and create new initiatives? All of this, it has its counter distinction in the focus and manipulation of group dynamics, because psychologically people know that's how you control people, through this wish of the passive human being to conform with the people around them. And we've seen this again on the world stage in many guises. I don't need to go into that. You can think of many examples. You just have to call up the last 2 years and think of many of the personal experiences you yourself have undoubtedly had to go through. So we've got the number 3, asserting material power in the world rather than facilitating spiritual influx. Again, this is the assertion that the church power, the power of the outer institution, rather than any recourse to an idealistic spiritual task that might be able to flow through that institution. Instead, you're going to assert the power of that institution through its forms and regulations, rather than any appeal to truth or higher ideal or principle. And again, if any institution would go in this more principled direction, it's questionable whether they would have any place in the modern world, or because life simply doesn't work like that in a very materialistic society. And again, you can see parallels of this in the leadership of the Goetheanum and in other institutions out there in society. So number 4, we've got occult geopolitics to maintain a priestly elite class over a progressive humanity. Again, you've seen elements of this within the Goetheanum, within anthroposophy itself, but you see this again, whether it's in the scientism, like a church of medicine, or the corporate structures that are so dominant and so powerful over society. The key thing here is the use of the occult to enforce power over the masses. So that's just a brief window into what we're going to be looking at tonight. If you're interested, as you can see, there's much more things that we'll be going into tonight, into relation to the different resistant powers, Ahriman, Lucifer, looking at the Azuras, We'll also be looking at the fall of the spirits of darkness, looking at the threshold and some of the aspects of the first class, and then going on to talk about the Gospel of St. Matthew, and talking about some of the aspects of false prophets. So that's just some of an outline of some of the things that we'll be covering tonight. So hopefully you can come along. It's going to be like a preview tonight of the course, which is going to start tomorrow. But yeah, hopefully some people will want to come along. Just PM me and we'll have a talk tonight about 6:30. Okay, cheers.